What is up, everybody? Excuse the glare that's coming down on me right now. Welcome to the 4-Eyed Pregame Show here at fantasyandframes.com. I'm your host, Jorge Edwards. We got a jam-packed cast and crew of characters. We already have a comment from Shevin from the Dynasty Rewind Podcast asking, when is this John starting because I need to fight Nate? What did Nate do to upset Shevin? I have no idea. We will get to that in a little bit, but before we get to that, let me just do some quick introductions. Michael Bauer from the Dynasty Rewind Podcast. Follow him at his Twitter handle right there. You all who have been listening to Fantasy and Frames for a long time, you know Ken Sonnenberg. He's setting up all of our data and stuff when it comes to the 4-Eyed Championships tournament, which we will talk about. Todd Barnes, Nate Markham, you can find them every week when we do our start and sit show on Wednesdays. And he's basically part of the family now from fantasygo.com. David Ibrahim, how you doing, David?
Doing good, man.
All right, folks. Let's get into it right now. Let's talk about the 4-Eyed Championships, our charity tournament. How this whole thing was planned to go was that, if we get a full season, the top 6 people compete for the final standing, and they would get a huge lump sum of money donated to their charity. Of course, we put in COVID conditions, and it just so happens we're dealing with a lot of COVID conditions right now as we speak. So stay tuned to that. We'll always be updating everybody who's participating in the tournament as to what the situation is and how we're assigning who's winning and who's losing. But as of right now, we're carrying on as if everything is going hunky-dory. And scrolling at the bottom of your screen, you see right now who is leading each division. Let's just see the McGriffin division, yours truly. That is, I don't know how that is. Then we get over to, let's see here, Hans Moleman. We got Mike Wohlert from 4for4 Fantasy. We got in the Hank Hill division, Ivor Anderson from Fantasy Alarm. And in the Tina Belcher division, we have Brady McClure. So check all those people out and you give them a round of applause. All right, and with that, let's go into now how we're handling the COVID situation. Now, for those of you who were up at 12:30 a.m. this morning, you got the alert that somebody for the Saints tested positive for COVID. And you then subsequently, like myself, stayed up for the rest of the day and morning and has only gotten like a couple hours of sleep because you were trying to see what the hell is going on. Are we even going to have football anymore? Going in the full panic mode because that's how, everyone reacts nowadays. Mike, look at that. Cora says dada. Anyhow, getting into that. So just to bring you up to date.
That's not her first words.
No, my wife watches when I'm on, and I can actually hear my daughter yell "Dada" from downstairs. So,
okay, just making sure, because that would be really awkward if you were on this and all of a sudden she just said her first words. So
you know what? That would be that'd be cool though. Like her first words watching a fantasy football broadcast, that would be fantastic.
True,
it would be, yeah.
So just to give you guys an update, as it stands right now, the Saints and Lions game is a go. That was a false positive that came out this morning for the fullback for the Saints, so that's good. None of the Saints players tested positive. And the news just breaking just now, there were no positive tests for the Chiefs and their situation with New England. So that game is scheduled to go on tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern at Arrowhead. So, aside from the Titans and the Steelers, who obviously are not playing this week, we got a full slate of action going on. So we're pretty excited about that. Now, there are people left and right turning up positive for the Tennessee Titans and the Tennessee Titans organization. And there is some concern that if more people keep popping up with positives, that this could impact Week 5 and their matchup with the Bills. But we'll handle that as we go. Let's focus on some football right now. And as we do every Sunday here in the 4-Eyed Pregame Show, we're going to go through every single matchup, talk about all the fantasy relevant people you want to hear about, and that you need to hear about, rather, both on offense and defense. So without further ado, let's get into our first game we're going to be talking about today. That the Arizona Cardinals heading over to the Carolina Panthers. Let's talk about the wide receiver. We got DJ Moore, who hasn't exactly been living up to the hype as we all hoped he would in the preseason. David, let me ask you your opinion real quick here. If you had to start one, DJ Moore or Robbie Anderson, who would you feel more confident in? Not who you would start, but who would you feel more confident in?
Confident in DJ Moore. I like the floor with him a lot better. I've mentioned multiple times that Robbie Anderson does rely on deep plays, although he did get a decent number of targets last year. That's what we get with a rushing quarterback in Teddy Bridgewater. He's not a pocket passer who likes to pick out his little slot receivers. So he's going for a lot of little runs here and there. DJ Moore is a safer play, but I don't know if we're going to see a replication of his last year's stats, to be honest.
Todd, from a reception point of view, are we counting on Mike Davis again? The guy had 19 fantasy points and half PPR scoring last week. Think he can duplicate that against Arizona?
That's how their offense just rolls. So they're gonna have to give him the ball. They feed the running back. So yeah, Mike Davis is an RB2 going forward for me, just based on receptions alone until Christian McCaffrey gets back.
Nice. Mike, I have a question for you for the other team. Kenyon Drake has been kind of a letdown for some managers. Some managers, have anticipated this, but others have not. What do you make of Kenyon Drake?
Actually, he's a guy that I wrote down as I'm excited about today. I think against the Panthers defense, he could do really well. On the season, 54 carries, 219 yards, a touchdown, 5 catches for 20 yards, which is definitely not what we were expecting from Kenyon Drake. The season is still young, however. A lot of people traded for him this offseason, me being one of them, thinking he would do what he did towards the end of last year. So if there's a get-right game for him, I think it's this one. And can I just touch on the Cardinals wide receivers real quick?
Absolutely.
I know DeAndre Hopkins is a pure game-time decision, so in the one place I had him, I moved him out for now. If he's out and Christian Kirk are out, you could look for Keyshawn Johnson, and that's Keesean, in case you don't know how to spell it. He could be a good deep dive if you have a really deep league. He did get some play last year. They did release Hakeem Butler and kept him, so he could be a guy to plug in and maybe get you a couple points because that wide receiver core, if D-Hop and Kirk are out, it's getting thin with just Andy Isabella and Larry Fitzgerald.
I think I saw DeAndre is expected to play, and he's a guy that he doesn't like to miss games anyway, so he's going to do his best to be out on the field.
Are we confident starting him though? I'm in my one league that I have him. I'm considering starting DJ Chark.
I think the answer to that question goes into DeAndre Hopkins' tweet last night, where he basically tweeted out an image of somebody looking scared, and that he wrote what my fantasy managers are looking like right now, wondering if I'm playing or not. So if he's joking about it, that tells me all right, he must feel confident enough to say that he's good to go, to do that on social media. I think
he's the kind of player who you can't bench him. He's just absolute target monster. And he makes the most of them too. He's just one of those guys that, it's like Michael Thomas. If he's playing, you're putting him in your lineup. It's just too, you'd have more regrets benching him than you would putting him in there and only getting a few fantasy points. But,
I've been wrong on DeAndre Hopkins since preseason, whatever you want to call that. I didn't expect him to have the season he's having, so I'm not about to start doubting him anymore. I think he's proven me wrong enough so far through 3.5 weeks, 4 weeks.
Absolutely. And with the running backs, I don't know why people are so low on Kenyon Drake. He's already got a couple of touchdowns so far, and he's clearly the bell cow there. I know that you're using Chase Edmonds a little bit, but it's the Drake show. I'm all about that hotline bling this week. Give me more Drake. He's going to absolutely start to feast. We saw what he did last year in 8 games. It's still early, guys. It's only week 4. I think we're going to see him bounce back this week.
So Carolina's allowed 7 touchdowns to running backs this year. That's tied for most. So,
wow.
Well, Michael was saying if there's a bounce back week, it's this week.
So my only concern with Kenyon Drake is you look at a lot of these games last season where he had his biggest production. We're talking 2 games out of the 6 that occurred. I think in one game he had 4 touchdowns. So that's kind of skewing what you're saying a little bit. But when he looked good, he looked good. What are you going to say? Now, when we're talking about running backs, there's somebody on the other side of the field who needs to stop running backs. So when we're talking IDP, Nate, who's somebody on the Carolina Panthers that you are confident in starting this week?
Oh, I like my Shaq Thompson finally had his proverbial get right game. He put up 26 points last week. I've been expecting that all year. In the secondary, Jeremy Chin will be my ride or die. He keeps producing every week. He has a hip injury though right now that he's been practicing through. That's the one thing I would keep an eye on is he's put in limited practices. hip injury. I mean, he's tough as they come. I would expect him to play through it and not miss time, but a re-aggravation or reoccurrence could hurt something. On the flip side, I'm very, very, very excited to hopefully see Isaiah Simmons' snap share exceed anything, because it has been non-existent up until now for the most part. With Budda Baker being out, which, by the way, if you guys didn't see it, there was a chance he was going to play this week, and he had UCL surgery on his thumb. He had surgery like 5 days ago, whatever it was, and he was going to play, but they had to force him out of the lineup. I mean, what a stud. But yeah, watch Isaiah Simmons. I think that could be, depending upon where he plays, how he plays, what position, who knows. We see on both sides of the ball that Swiss Army knife from both. Jeremy Chin's played all over the field, and so has Isaiah Simmons. It could be actually kind of a fun game to monitor from that standpoint.
Speaking of Budda Baker, I'm watching that game last week versus Detroit, and he was going back to the sidelines left and right to get his hand taped up over and over again. And then at this point, he only had like 5 tackles, which were solo tackles, which are not great for an elite, DB that you're starting at IDP. But the last time he got his hand taped up, he did like a fist bump with the guy. He's like, "How you feeling?" He's like, "I got this." And then he went on to rattle off 6 more solo tackles on the game. The guy is a beast.
He is.
All right, let's head over to. I actually don't know what their city's name is. Is it the Queen City in Cincinnati? Sure, let's go with that. Yep. Jacksonville Jaguars heading to the Cincinnati Bengals. James Robinson. We feeling good about that, Nate?
I am. I mean, hell, he's the Rookie of the Month, which I think, like we were all saying, if there were odds-on favorite to win Rookie of the Month up until now, would James Robinson had been at the top of your list in, a month ago? No, nobody would have.
Even when people were picking him up off waivers, I was laughing to myself, and now I'm having deep regrets about not grabbing him in any leagues at all. I think he's going to end the year as an RB1. Yeah, he's putting up RB1 numbers so far. Yeah. There's no reason to believe he's going to stop.
Watch this week too. DJ Reader is about the only defensive tackle that Cincinnati has starting for them. Everybody else is banged up and out, and so there's a good chance that Jacksonville leans pretty heavy on him this week. I could see a pretty high end result.
Is Sam Hubbard playing, Nate?
Yes, Sam Hubbard is playing. Okay. The DNs are both Carlos Dunlap and Hubbard should both be in. It's it's the defensive tackles, which they don't have any. So I think that rotation is going to be a little bit weak.
And by the way, for everybody who's looking for rankings at the last minute to get their rosters all set up, I'll have my rankings over at fantasyandframes.com. So head over there, check out the rankings there. And Nate, you may have your rankings before 1 o'clock, maybe, potentially. We'll see, right?
Oh, I thought I had them in. Guess not.
Okay. Well, we will make sure that you have the rankings up there. So head over to fantasyandframes.com. Ken, let's talk to you for a bit. Gardner Minshew started off the season pretty well. Then last week, we had the beard versus the stash, and quite frankly, this Panthers team, aside from James Robinson, looked pretty goddamn awful from an offensive point of view. And now he's going against Joe Burrow, who's I think in the top 5 in passing attempts. Is this a bounce back week for Gardner Minshew, or are we still staying away this week?
I might stay away from him. You don't know the status of DJ Chark right now, so if he plays, he may be all right, but I would stay away from him. Cincinnati's only allowing 16.5 points per game to opposing team quarterbacks, so their secondary has been pretty good this year. So I don't know. Minshew hasn't been good the last couple weeks, so.
I think that was a lesson of not and the one thing I learned the hard way, unfortunately, in our Fantasy Go League as well, Jorge, is don't overthink matchups. Definitely take them into consideration, but how many people were benching Lamar and Mahomes for Minshew last week and really paid the price at the end? And I did that myself. I actually benched, I didn't put Minshew in, but I put Cam Newton over Mahomes in one league and lost because of it. So that's one lesson that I've learned. There's certain studs, like we were talking about DeAndre Hopkins, Chris McCaffrey when healthy and all those guys. They're just matchup proof, and make sure that you play to that strength.
Start your studs.
That's right. Exactly. Going back to Joe Burrow, he is second in the NFL in passing attempts, right behind Dak Prescott. That is amazing.
Wow.
That is amazing. Speaking of the Bengals, look, I have in one league and David, in your fantasy COVID league, we have going on here. I have Joe Mixon. I have Myles Gaskins. if I just took the names off of the stats for both players, I would sub in Myles Gaskins for Joe Mixon. I kind of am feeling a little bit ballsy and feel like Myles Gaskins with the volume could be a good play or better play than Joe Mixon this week. Am I crazy?
No, I think it's the best move, to be honest.
Are you just saying that because you want to get standings up higher than mine?
No, I don't. I mean, you guys know how I feel about Joe Mixon. The guy in the first half of last year who was getting 40 rushing yards a game, and we're seeing that again. He's getting the opportunity. He's just not taking advantage of the opportunity. The offensive line is not horrible. We're not talking, no offense, Ken, like a Giants offensive line. But it's a middle of the pack, and he's supposed to be a decent talent. He's not producing. When that happens, like we said right now, the draft doesn't matter. It doesn't matter about where you picked him up. You got to play the guy who's going to give you the best opportunity, and that's Gaskin.
Joe Burrow is the most sacked quarterback in the league right now.
Wow.
Well, let me Nate, you and I, we have our podcast over on the Fantasy Data Podcast Network, the Fantasy Playbook, and which, by the way, folks, we should be checking out every Wednesday when we publish our episodes. We were talking about in that podcast episode, talking about the Cincinnati Bengals. When you look at where Joe Mixon was having the most success towards the end of last year, as well as this year, it's been to that right side of that offensive line where he's been able to utilize his athleticism to evade tackles, to get out of the way, and just basically make plays. But when you look at where exactly on the offensive line they're actually running these plays, the majority of the plays for it, it's been right up the middle, right up their weak spot. So you would figure that they would try to tailor their running game to the strengths of what Joe Mixon can do, and they're just not doing that. Todd, wide receivers, AJ Green, are we fading him like the rest of the season and just going Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins, or just Tyler Boyd, or what are your thoughts on the receiving game there?
Well, I definitely think Boyd is the guy you want on that team. AJ Green, I'm definitely kind of fading. I think I'm kind of more fading AJ Green now and kind of hopping on the T. Higgins bandwagon. But I mean, AJ Green is still second in air yards on the season with 386. I mean, that can't be ignored, but he's just done absolutely nothing out there on the field. And then as far as the Jacksonville wide receivers go, I think that's probably one of the toughest matchups. Most teams are running on the Jags anyway. So, I mean, they're not throwing the ball. So the Jags have only allowed 28.2 fantasy points to opposing wide receivers on the year. So especially with Chark banged up a little bit, I mean, I think he's going to play, but he's banged up. So I probably wouldn't start any Jacksonville wide receivers this week. But, yeah, I'm probably taking T. Higgins over A.J. Green moving forward.
Cincinnati's slot corner is out for the week as well. He was ruled out this morning or late last night. So not saying Keelan Cole's a good start, but if there's a matchup to exploit, maybe it might be a rotational corner set in that slot.
To answer Chevin's question real quick, Tyler Boyd or Kenny Galladay, no Marshawn Lattimore for New Orleans. I think it's his Galladay's game. Deep plays, the average depth of target is pretty high whenever he's been in there. All aboard the Galladay bandwagon this week for me if I had to choose between the two. Nate, in terms of
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, what were you going to say?
No, I was going to say just one quick point about with Joe Burrow, just looking at everything. I mean, 628 yards in the last 2 weeks, 5 touchdowns. He hasn't thrown an interception in those 2 games. So he's
startable. I'm not saying he's definitely a startable option. Nate, in terms of IDP for the Jaguars, Myles Jack and Joe Schobert have both played pretty well. Is there one that you're favoring more over the other?
I want to say Joe Schobert simply because what we talked about with Joe Mixon up the middle. But, I mean, Myles Jack is the one of only 2 NFL players so far to have double-digit tackles in each game. So, I mean, there's that consistency trend, which is crazy. And, I mean, he's really acclimated. So, I'm going to lean in my rankings Joe Schobert just because of the potential volume. But I think if you have Myles Jack, I think that's an easy, simple play. I also think that Carlos Dunlap could have get his first sack of the season if I'm going out on a limb, just because the matchup. Jawan Taylor's allowed, I think, 4 sacks on the season so far. So it's a good matchup to exploit.
Nice. All right, let's head down to Dallas. Cleveland, at the Cowboys. I'm kind of excited for this game for a number of reasons. I think the receiving matchups are going to be pretty awesome. I think, let's just get into that real quickly because, last week, Todd, the only team in the NFL with 4 receivers with over 100 yards in one game, I believe, was the Dallas Cowboys receiving corps. Kind of what we were expecting. We were expecting 3, not 4. But going forward this week, how confident are you, let's say, in a wide receiver that I just happen to be very keen on, and that is Michael Gallup? Or are we thinking it's going to be more of the CD Amari Cooper show today?
I was actually trying to buy low on Gallup in these first couple of weeks when everyone was kind of hopping off the bandwagon. Gallup's number 10 in air yards on the season with 322. So, he's still getting the looks, and the looks he is getting they're good ones.
No, we're doing it exactly. No, I got you.
Yeah. So I like Gallup. I'm with you. I like Gallup over CD Lamb. I've been trying to buy low on him. I got him in one of my leagues. And then, but Amari Cooper, yeah, I think he probably scores this week. He's got to find the end zone eventually.
Mike, what are your thoughts there?
I love Michael Gallup, and I've tried to get him all off season and the first couple weeks, and I've had people not trade me Michael Gallup because I'm an Eagles fan. Like, why do you want him? You're an Eagles fan. I'm like, well, he's a good player. He may look, his season stats aren't super great so far. 11 receptions, 246 yards, 1 touchdown on 19 targets. Yeah, I love Michael Gallup. This game's going to be great. It's going to be I'm actually high on Baker Mayfield this week too. Kareem Hunt is kind of questionable, the groin injury. He expects to play. Nick Chubb obviously is going to have a great game like he always does, but Baker is not, I don't think, that elite level quarterback that we expected him to be as of yet. He only has 564 yards passing on the season. That could change today. Dallas defense isn't that great, and Cleveland definitely has the receivers to get it done. So I'm actually pretty excited about this game. Also, I'd like to say go Browns. So I never cheer for the Browns, but definitely cheering for them against Dallas today.
Ken, I just got your note that you got to head out quickly. Thank you very much for joining us.
Sorry about that, guys. Sorry about that, guys. Work emergency all of a sudden. When they texting you on Sunday mornings, stuff has hit the fan.
Exactly.
Everybody, we'll catch you next time.
See you guys.
No, I'm right there with you. This could definitely be a bounce back game for Baker Mayfield. I'm actually really excited about Odell Beckham this week. Not so much Jarvis Landry, because Landry's just has looked off ever since this whole hip injury thing. He had surgery close to the beginning of the season or preseason. Something's off there. I think this could be a Beckham game. Beckham.
I hope so.
Yeah, seriously, right? David, were you going to say something about the receivers here in this game?
I was just going to say the receivers in Dallas there, those 3 guys, I think we're seeing what we saw with the Rams of 2 years ago when you had Woods, Kupp, and Cooks. You fire those 3 guys up all the time, and I think you have to take that same strategy. Yeah, Dak Prescott is just on fire. So if you have CeeDee Lamb, Gallup, and Cooper, even on the same team, I have no problem starting all 3. Just going forward, I agree with you with Gallup. But yeah, it was just a quick note I wanted to make.
All right, Nate, with IDP, Aldon Smith has been a monster. Can you tell us why?
He's athletically gifted, superior in strength, and he has one of the best duck under moves possible. And this week against Jedrick Wills has his handful, and he's a good tackle. The concern I have is that Aldon Smith won't be asked. So like week 2, he was asked to drop back in coverage against Atlanta, which was it was odd. And that's not his makeup. I don't understand why they had him do that. So when they designated him just to rush the passer, we saw exactly what's going to happen last week. And we're going to see it this week. He's going to be, pretty much getting at Baker. I think that right now, Aldon Smith, Jalen Smith, and Myles Garrett are pretty much the only 3 that I would even consider on either side of the ball.
All right, let's head over down to the Motor City to a game that we know now is going to take place as opposed to at 12:30 at night when I'm frantically posting on Twitter and Facebook. Oh my God, the world's coming to an end.
Those posts were good though. They were.
Thank you. For the Saints, no Michael Thomas, no more Sean Lattimore on the defensive side of the ball. So this has a makings for a shootout type of a game. Alvin Kamara, obviously, coming off of that big receiving performance last week against Green Bay. I don't think I have to tell you to start these people. Kenny Golladay, no Marshawn Lattimore shadow. I think he's in for a big game.
No Janoris Jenkins either.
Oh yeah, that's also a good point. Marvin Jones maybe could have a potentially good game.
Absolutely.
Good flex option this week. Just so I'm clear, David, we're not starting any Lions running backs, right?
I don't know, man. I've picked up Adrian Peterson in a couple of leagues. He's safe. I'm not saying he's your RB1, but if you've got a flex spot and you're in trouble, I mean, obviously there's you've got injuries, COVID, and a couple of teams on bye. I don't mind putting him in the flex, because I know he started NFL career when man discovered fire, but he's getting the yards. And he looks pretty talented. There was a couple of little cuts that he did last week, and he got 20, 30 yards. So they're using him. I actually have dropped DeAndre Swift in a few leagues because he had 5 touches last week. They're using him a little bit in the passing game. They're still using Kerryon Johnson a little bit. He's a third running back on that team. I'm not trusting Swift unless there's an injury to Adrian Peterson.
In the receiving game, Traquan Smith has actually been playing pretty damn well the past 2 weeks. 13 targets, 9 receptions. He's been averaging, the fantasy points aren't there, the 8.6 fantasy points. Maybe in a full PPR. Let's see what he's averaging there. Full PPR, he's averaging 10.9 fantasy points. Not a bad option from a flex perspective. Todd, what are your thoughts on Traquan?
I mean, I think it all really just kind of depends on what Michael Thomas's workload is and how he looks out there. So that would be the one thing I have with my only concerns with Traquan Smith.
You mean Emmanuel Sanders?
I thought you said
Michael Thomas.
Yeah, you said Traquan Smith. Traquan Smith.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
You said Michael Thomas's workload, so I was confused by that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's what I meant. I meant Emmanuel Sanders.
Okay.
But you know what I meant.
I got you.
Thanks for clearing up there. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, Drew Brees just has not looked himself, and so the wide receivers are just kind of scaring me. And then, I guess Jared Cook is out as well, so
right.
That's a boost for him. But I mean, we're gonna feed Alvin Kamara, and then he's gonna keep it underneath to the tight end. So that's how he's done it all year. So I mean, the wide receivers just scare me. I know he has looked good though.
You know what amazes me in the past 2 seasons? You look at the running backs who've gotten the big lucrative contracts. Only Alvin Kamara, I feel, has been really earning the most. You look at Zeke's last year; his production went down. Look at Dalvin Cook this year; his production has gone down. But Alvin Kamara, from like week 1 till now, and probably going forward, I mean, he has been the Saints' offense. He has really been earning that contract. So kudos to him. Nathan, IDP. Let's talk about the Saints real quick. Demario Davis is a must start if you have him in your lineup or in your bench or on your team, right?
Yeah, I'd say Malcolm Jenkins would probably be a must start as well. I have to assume that he's going to be asked to be everywhere, considering there's nobody else in the secondary. It's hard to say what talking about the receivers for Detroit, for New Orleans. Whoever Jeffrey Okudah is matched up against, I think is in for a longer day than they expect. I don't think it's the worst case scenario to start Okudah. If you have to start a cornerback, he's one that I'm starting to heavily lean on just because I mean his tackle volume is there. He ranks near the top in terms of average solo tackles per game. So he's getting targets at him. I think this might be one of the last weeks that offensive coordinators scheme to him instead of scheming away from him.
Yeah, definitely good IDP play this week. He played really well. All right, so we're done with this game.
Can I touch real quick on the Saints defense real quick? So they've actually allowed 20-plus fantasy points to QBs in every game this year. So I think Stafford could honestly be a solid play. And then our defense against tight ends has been absolutely horrendous. 96.7 receiving yards on the year per game. So we've just been getting torched. So, yeah, Hawkinson, another solid play.
Nice. All right.
Is Sanders droppable? Emmanuel Sanders. Are you guys dropping him in leagues?
I can't until Michael Thomas gets back. Here's the thing. We talk about, droppable and start and sits, and he is definitely a good bench warmer for me. I don't know how often, depending on the league size, I'm going to be starting Emmanuel Sanders. Maybe if I'm in the 14 or 16 team league, then I would have to, obviously, because the lack of talent you have around you. but I without Michael Thomas, I don't really trust Trey Quan, although he has been getting a lot of work this week, or past couple of games, I should say. We're hoping, Emmanuel Sanders can be some type of shell of what he once was in Denver and in Pittsburgh. That was a long time ago. To answer your question, no, I couldn't drop Emmanuel Sanders just yet.
Did you put up Shev's thing on Troutman? There?
I did. Let me put it up again.
I'm sorry, because I think that is something that we should pay attention. I mean, Mike, you actually would know more from a dynasty standpoint, but he was probably the number one tight end coming in next to Cole Kmet, right?
A lot of people had those two flip back and forth. Cole Kmet was the guy in this class, not a good tight end class. The next year's class, you got Kyle Pitts out of Florida, Pat Fryermuth out of Penn State, Brevin Jordan out of Miami. So you're going to have three studs right there that could be round one, round two dynasty rookie draft guys. But Troutman has a chance right here. So in a lot of leagues, if I had Jared Cook, I drafted Adam Troutman. And you know what? They took him in the third round, and he was out of Dayton. There was hardly any film on this guy. So he is raw, but he's big. He's athletic. If you do watch his tape from Dayton, it's terrible tape, just the quality of it. What you see is a man amongst boys. So in this system, I think Adam Troutman could be fantastic. And for the Saints to take a third-round pick on a guy that no one really knew anything about, sky's the limit for him, for sure.
Nice.
All right, let's go down to Houston, Minnesota, coming to town. Two bad teams, two quarterbacks who like to throw the ball, bad defenses on both sides. How could you not be excited from a fantasy standpoint as far as playing your skill players? Dalvin Cook against one of the worst run defenses. You're starting everybody, right? Am I wrong? Is there anybody that you're not starting? David, let's ask you the question.
No, I mean, unless you're desperate enough to try to play Duke Johnson, but I think our DJ is going to light up the club today because he's going to have a bounce back. I've said the first three games for him, we expected they were going to be tough. Ravens, Steelers, Chiefs weren't too bad, but he still did pretty good that game. From now on forward, I think David Johnson is going to be that low-end RB1. Might be wrong, but I think it's going to be a big bounce back here. But, yeah, you're right. Two bad defenses. This might be the shootout of the week.
We have another comment from Shevin. Justin Jefferson, he came out in a big way last week. I believe he had 175 yards, a touchdown. We believe in Justin Jefferson again this week, Todd?
In this matchup, I definitely like Justin Jefferson. I liked what they finally – the first couple of weeks, it was rough for him. They were using him out the slot, and last year Minnesota was bottom 5 in the league in how much they used the slot. So I didn't like that to start off, but last week they started moving him out wide as actually a true number 2 instead of just throwing him in the slot, and we saw what he did. I mean, now he has 12 catches on the year. I like Justin Jefferson, especially in this matchup, big time, because I think it's two bad defenses, like you said. It's looking like it could be a shootout.
Nate, from an IDP perspective, we had this debate on the Fantasy Playbook podcast brought to you by Fantasy Data. Eric Kendricks, Zach Cunningham. If you had to start one, who are you starting, and is there a concern for the other?
Zach Cunningham, I think, is battling a little bit of a leg injury right now. That's the only reason I would maybe definitively take Kendricks. I got to tell you who I kind of like also on that side of the ball is Yannick Ngakoue has looked a lot better the last couple weeks, and he's got a great matchup. He's already has 4 quarterback hits on the season, 2 sacks, and obviously I think we both know, or we all know, all 5 of us know, this is going to be a pass heavy game to the that's the one thing I want to talk about too. I think that this going forward, and I've said this a couple times now, I think Minnesota is changing in terms of their philosophy. I think that we're going to get away from that close to 50-50 pass to run ratio. And I think it's going to start becoming this pass heavier team because their defense can't sustain a run heavy attack. I don't think they can. If they want to win football games, they're going to start passing the ball more. I know that goes against everything that Gary Kubiak says and speaks and does, but that gives me credence and makes me feel a lot more comfortable in Justin Jefferson going forward. Dalvin Cook will still get his carries and his touches and his receptions, but I think that you watch, I think we're going to start seeing a more pass heavy attack.
On the other side of the ball, what are you guys doing with Brandon Cooks? He's kind of like, that T-shirt you used to wear 4 years ago. It's 2 sizes too small, and your wife tells you to throw it out. You're like, no, I'm going to lose weight and fit into it one day. He sits on my bench, and I just don't have the stones to put him in my starting lineup. But you can't trade him because you're not getting good value, and obviously you're not cutting him. He's a weird one for me. I don't have enough faith to start him in most leagues.
I see a Will Fuller game. As much as we like to call him Mr. Glass with his hamstring, normally he gets a hamstring and he's out for a few weeks, but he's been returning to practice towards the end of each week. So maybe he's realizing, hey, I can't miss games anymore. This team needs me, or contracts are on the line down the road. I can't miss games. I need to power through. Whatever the reason is, when he's been in there, he's been productive. So especially in this matchup, I'm pro Will Fuller. Brandon Cooks, to me, I look at him and I see Jordan Reed, just one bad hit away from being out for another period of time due to a concussion. Randall Cobb, who, for somebody who got 800 yards receiving in Dallas last year, you would figure they would be utilizing him more. But for whatever reason, they're not. And I'm kind of hoping that this week could be the changing of the guard there. But as far as, for me, it's only Will Fuller I would feel comfortable starting from that perspective.
Yeah.
What's Shevin saying here now? Okay.
I mean, that's a viable. My concern with that is that if we think that Houston is going to go to the air often, I don't know. Dalvin can still get his carries. I think 2025 is more this week, but it's going to be game script, dependent.
Well, I think that the touches is really a good point. He doesn't necessarily have to get 25 carries as long as he's getting his targets and receptions and his attempts are going up in some capacity or the other. All right, let's go down to South Beach. Let's go Seattle Seahawks visiting the Miami Dolphins. Man, this Seahawks backfield is kind of decimated. And Ryan Fitzpatrick has this thing called Ryan Fitzmagic on his side. We have a guest on the show.
Travis Kelce.
Nice. Travis, you're so young. I had no idea.
He looks a little bit smaller than I thought.
I'm just really, really big. That's what it is.
From the Seattle, let's go to the Miami standpoint, because I think we all know DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett are definitely good must starts. Obviously, you're starting Russell Wilson, 14 touchdowns in 3 weeks. We got another guest on the show. Hold on. Oh, very nice.
Look here.
Hey, Cora, how are you?
You wave hi?
Hi.
Hi. Go ahead.
Hey.
Hi.
You say, yeah, with some help.
There we go. Hey, you waving hi?
David, it's your
Mine is still trapped so far. I've got the doors closed.
Nice. So where are we going with this? So let's talk on the flip side, the Miami skills players. I already told you how confident I am in Myles Gaskins. I think he has a pretty good game. No Jamal Adams, crowding the line of scrimmage and getting those tackles in the backfield. How are we thinking about Devontae Parker and Preston Williams for that sake? Nate, what are your thoughts there?
I want to see what Devontae Parker's health status is. He's playing, correct? That's the affirmative now. How much I assume he's – how can you not start Preston Williams and Devontae Parker, considering Seattle's given up about, 2.7 million points per game to wide receivers? It's hard not to trust in that entire passing game. I'd ask you to flip it on you. I know you're a big Mike Gesicki fan. Is this a Mike Gesicki week?
With Jamal Adams going down and the strong safeties normally liking either to crowd the box or playing coverage, and we all know Jamal Adams can line up anywhere and do everything on that field. Without him there, I am 100% on the Gesicki bandwagon. I know in my 4-8 starts and sits earlier in the week, I was anti-Gesicki because I thought he was just going to be swallowed up by tackles. He gets no yards after the catch. He doesn't turn up field that well. But with no Jamal Adams there over the top to take away any potential plays there, I think he's going to make a great red zone target. I think this is another game where I think you're going to see another shootout potential if Fitzpatrick can channel some Fitzmagic going forward. From an IDP perspective, 2 linebackers for the Dolphins have really been tearing it up lately, and I think one is kind of fairly well known. The other one is coming from New England, and I think nobody really expected him to put up this performance. I'm talking about Jerome Baker and Kyle Van Noy. Both of these guys have been playing lights out. Aside from them, from the linebacking position in Miami, is there anybody else on Miami that you're thinking about there, Nate?
Nothing that stands out to me. I mean, defensive line, we had Christian Wilkins that had one good week, and then he's kind of went missing. Short of that, nothing that really stands out. On the opposite side, I think this is not that you would ever not start Bobby Wagner, but with no Jamal Adams, I mean, he's consistently been at 11 points, 11.25. So he's the consistent linebacker for sure. I think this might be that 15, 16 tackle week.
Nice. All right, let's go a little bit further down in Florida. Let's go to Tampa Bay. I'm going to ask the tight end question and just get it out of the way for David. You feel comfortable with no Chris Godwin? And I don't know if Scott Miller has been declared in or out yet. You feeling comfortable starting Gronkowski this week, or is it no, not so much?
I'm using liquidating all my shares, and I'm buying all Gronk this week. Last week we saw 7 targets. He caught 6 of them. Nearly got one in the end zone. With Godwin out, I think they've found what they've got in Gronkowski, and he's not going to be blocking as much. Look, I'm not expecting 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. Don't get me wrong, but don't be surprised if in the red zone he's looking for Gronk, and maybe you get 50 to 80 yards. But that's what I'm expecting out of Gronkowski. I think they're going to utilize him a bit more, but he's not going to be a Travis Kelce or George Kittle.
Nice. Now, we all know on the defensive side of the ball, we got some studs over there for Tampa Bay. Levante David, Devin White, JPP up front. And in the backfield, Antoine Winfield Jr. has been playing lights out, 17 total tackles, 12 solo to 5 assists. He has 2 sacks on the year, 2 quarterbacks hit, the pass defense. I mean, he's playing pretty solid, and that defense is looking good as a whole. As a result, if that defense can get up on the Chargers, I'm not really expecting a lot out of Tom Brady this week. I think he takes a step back. He has had 2 20-point fantasy points scoring games the past 2 out of the 3 weeks. But I think without his full complement of weapons, that could potentially hamper him and his fantasy production. He's definitely a QB2 as far as I'm concerned.
Ronald Jones could be a beast this
You're
week
right.
with Fournette out.
Absolutely right. On the flip side, going to the Chargers, I don't think this is a Joshua Kelly game as much as I would love to have him be somebody. I think this is more of an Austin Eckler type game. What do we think about the rookie quarterback here? He's been playing pretty damn well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mike, what are your thoughts on why is his name forgetting me?
Justin Herbert.
Thank you, Justin Herbert. Yes,
I love Justin Herbert. I actually wrote him down as one of the players I'm excited about this week. Just really had no preparation as the starter to come in. They should have won that game against Kansas City. I think we could all say that. They played not to lose instead of to win in overtime, which kind of stinks. But he's thrown for almost 700 yards this year, 641. Touchdown interception ratio is even 2-2. But he can move too. 7 carries for 33 yards. I know the Bucs have a decent defense. I believe Todd Bowles is their defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Nate, correct me if I'm wrong. Yes. So, but I like his skill set, and I think he could definitely give the Bucs a fit. So I have a couple leagues where I'm starting him this week, actually.
He loves Keenan Allen too. That's the one thing. I mean, if we see another consistent performance,
I think Keenan Allen leads the NFL in targets.
He does 29 targets in the last 2 weeks alone. 20 out of 29 for 228 yards and a touchdown. He loves him. Last week, used him on 41% of his targets. All went to Keenan Allen. If we see that, we need to start treating Keenan Allen like a high-end wide receiver 1, getting 100 yards and a touchdown each week.
And I think he's leading. I think he's leading the league in red zone targets too.
And he's performing too.
Right there.
He's not like AJ Green getting 13 targets and 3 receptions for 29 yards. Keenan Allen's actually performing and utilizing. He gets separation. That's one thing with Keenan Allen. I love watching him run routes. That he runs super clean routes and always gets decent enough separation just to get a couple of yards here and there.
Yeah, I have him down 5th overall at receiver this week.
Yeah,
with the potential to be top 2 or 3. So
absolutely.
Nate, there's a linebacker for the Chargers who, after Drew Tranquill went down in week 1 with that leg injury, he's been kind of flying under the radar in IDP circles. Can you tell us a little bit about him?
Yeah, you're talking about Kaiser White. He's a safety by trade, and they moved him into the linebacker position, and he has the speed to keep up. And obviously, what we've seen with Tampa Bay is that Tom just doesn't like to go deep as much as Jameis did last year, of course. So a lot of intermediate passes. I think that he'll be he'll be pretty heavily involved in that. And then you have Chris Harris out of the game as well. So now you have no slot corner or whatever you want to call Chris Harris because he's kind of able to do everything. But, yeah, I think it's going to be middle of the field. Kaiser White's going to be heavily involved. Jerry Tillery is another IDP player that's really had a pretty good season, kind of under the radar, defensive tackle. He has 5 quarterback hits so far. He's getting pressure. He's actually just one behind Joey Bosa. So when you think of, offensive line or defensive line pressures, you would immediately go to Joey Bosa. Jerry Tillery is really getting a lot of that single coverage as a result of, Joey Bosa being there.
Right.
And just quickly, I was just going to say, with Tom Brady and Chris Godwin, I don't think even when Godwin comes back, we're going to see as much. He's not going to be his value, to be honest. Last year, Jameis Winston used to try and motivate himself by throwing 2 pick sixes to start every game. Because of that, he had to throw for 5,100 yards, right? That's not Tom Brady. Tom Brady is a good game manager. Yeah, he typically doesn't. Historically with the Patriots, doesn't get crazy leads. Not leads. Sorry, point deficits, if you will. So I think we're going to see a much conservative passing game. Mike Evans is still producing, and I think he's going to continue to do that. But Godwin, I think, is going to be the loser out of the, I guess, those two anyway.
Well, seeing as how I have shares in my home league of Chris Godwin, I hope you're wrong. So we'll find out what happens going forward when he gets back in. All right, let's go to the nation's capital, my neck of the woods. We've got the Ravens visiting the football team, as they're known now. Reports coming out this week that Ron Rivera had a conversation with Dwayne Haskins following their loss last week, that if he doesn't pick it up, they're going to move on from him. So do you think this is a wake-up call for Haskins in this passing game with him and Terry McLaurin showing some type of chemistry, or is this Ravens defense going to be too much? Mike, what are your thoughts?
I don't know, man. I actually have a question for you. Is Dontrell Inman startable? The answer has to be yes, because there's some leagues where I have to start him. Yeah, I think I've said it before. It might be on here. It might be on the Dynasty Rewind. Is anybody else's rosters look like week 14 where everyone's on IR and it's only week 4 and you're picking up guys that were bagging groceries at Acme? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it's bad. I don't know. I'm concerned about the Washington passing game. And I did see something where, and Jorge, you would be able to attest to this better than me. Coach Rivera said that someone told Haskins that, your job's kind of on the line. I did see an article. Did you see that?
Yeah. That's exactly right. Yeah.
I think it's a little early. And earlier in the season, I had told someone, because they were asking me Trubisky versus Haskins. And I said, I think Haskins has the longer leash than Trubisky does. So maybe it's only a game or two longer.
Right.
Personally, for me, I feel like this is going to sound weird. This feels like a Gus Edwards game to me. If you watch last week when they were losing to Kansas City, they're losing. They're down. Their 2 best running backs were not on the field. Gus Edwards was in. Look at this. Week 1, 15 snaps, 25% of the snaps. Week 2, 20 snaps, 31%. Week 3, 13 snaps, 23%. So Gus Edwards, he's out there. You know what I mean? And he's getting meaningful snaps when the team needs someone to do something. So Mark Ingram, man, needed 7 points from you. I would have been 3-0 in one league. Didn't happen.
Yeah, that's a good point. Terry McLaurin, he's been dealing with an injury this week.
He is active. I did see that.
He is active.
Yes, he is.
So he's currently slated to line up against Jimmy Smith at right corner. But Marlon Humphrey has been known to line up at right cornerback also.
He got paid this week, right?
And he got paid this week. So there's some motivation right there. So I wouldn't be surprised if you saw Marlon Humphrey switch up with Jimmy Smith on certain plays and kind of limit McLaurin this week. I think we all know it's coming to Landover, Maryland, with the Ravens coming to town. Lamar Jackson's pissed off. He had a bad game last week. The running game for the Ravens is pissed off. Mark Andrews should have played a lot better last week. He did not. I think this is going to be a goddamn bloodbath, and it's sad to say.
Or is this an upset game, Jorge?
Yeah, let me tell you. Let me be honest with you. If Chase Young was playing and this front seven was 100% healthy, I would say this game would be a lot more competitive than people are going to be giving it credit, including myself. That's not the case. Not having good feelings about it. Nate, from an IDP perspective, Bostic has been playing pretty lights out for Washington.
Yeah, Bostic for sure he's becoming a must start, probably because the offense is not on the field ever, and therefore the defense is. And when you're on the field, you score points. That whole narrative thing. The one linebacker that you and I have talked about that I'm intrigued. I got to find out if he's actually playing today is Kevin Pierre-Louis, or is it Louis? I don't know if he's French.
I don't know. I just made that up the other day.
Yeah. Nathan Jerry dilemma that we have.
He sucks.
He sucks.
We're trying to have him on the pod, Mike. Come on.
Make sure you get me on with him too. I got something.
Yeah, absolutely. KPL, like when he played, I agree. When he played Arizona and he had Kyler Murray scrambling all over the place, he had 16 total tackles. I mean, this kind of fits that mold right there where he could be very useful. Obviously, you're starting Landon Collins, Chuck Clark on the Ravens side, Patrick Queen. I think that roster.
LJ Fort is actually another linebacker for the Ravens that I don't think will be on the field enough, but boy, he just because of the whole game of the way the game's going to unfold, but he's been everywhere. He's done a lot of everything. Now his numbers are a little inflated because of the big play, the touchdowns, the two fumble recoveries, forced fumbles, etc. But when there's a play to be had, he's always around the ball, and that usually is a recipe for success. So I've kind of started keeping a little bit of a focus on him and seeing what his snap share is going to do.
Yeah, Oklahoma Doug, who was supposed to be on the show this week, unfortunately he had some difficulties, and so we're hoping to get him on next week and subsequent weeks going forward. He's a big LJ Fort person, and last week he brought it up during the chat feature here on YouTube or wherever you're watching right now this show. He's definitely somebody that is moving up there in rankings. Absolutely. All right, let's go to the Giants and the Rams. Man, the Giants. I don't know who I'm trusting for the Giants, if anybody at all. Todd, what are your thoughts there?
I mean, I guess you could look at Evan Ingram. The Rams gave up 3 touchdowns to tight ends last week, but yeah, maybe Evan Ingram. Other than that, I'm not touching the backfield at all. And then maybe Golden Tate. He has 5 catches in each game, right?
Yeah.
So maybe Golden Tate, if it's a PPR league, I mean, in a flex, he could put up a few points. They're going to be down, so they're going to be throwing.
David, let me get your opinion on the Rams running backs. Look, everyone expected Darrell Henderson to usurp Todd Gurley last year. That didn't happen. They drafted Cam Akers. Cam Akers gets hurt. Malcolm Brown in the beginning of week 1 is like, oh, well, he's going to be that veteran running back and eventually open the door for Cam Akers. Cam Akers has that rib cartilage injury. And then all of a sudden they bring in Darrell Henderson, and he's splitting carries. And all of a sudden Darrell Henderson is running away with his backfield. Do you think this is short-term or long-term for Henderson?
This is officially a running back by committee. And I just cannot confidently trust any Rams running back right now. It's just, if you have better options, you might not have better options, as we've discussed with all the injuries. So you might have to be playing them, but I'm staying away from that whole backfield in general. It's similar to the Ravens backfield. You just never know who's going to get the goal lines, who's going to get the most carries. Who I am excited about, to be honest, is the other side of the field being Devonta Freeman. I actually think in PPR, Devonta Freeman is going to be a good play this week, especially with a week of reps. He came in to be the feature back, so I think he's going to get the targets. I don't think we're going to expect massive games, but I wouldn't be shocked if we see 8 or 9 receptions and maybe 100 scrimmage yards combined.
I would bet that Darrell Henderson outscores Devonta Freeman this week.
Big time.
And here's why. I understand what you're saying about the Rams backfield. Cam Akers is out again. Malcolm Brown still has a finger injury. Darrell Henderson has gotten better each week. Week 2, 12 for 81, a touchdown, 2 catches, 40 yards. Week 3, 20 for 114 and a touchdown, only 1 catch for 6 yards. So I would say he's the guy until he's not. Until Cam Akers is healthy, I'll confidently roll with Darrell Henderson, to be honest with you. And you know what? I don't hate Devonta Freeman, though, but that Giants line is so bad.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
I'm actually glad Ken's not on right now because I know he's a Giants fan. I don't want to bash the Giants. I mean, as far as like,
I thought they made changes, didn't they? Didn't they draft a bunch of O-linemen?
They drafted Andrew Thomas was with the first pick.
Tackles opted out of the season, I believe. So right away, your 2 starting linemen are done.
Yeah,
and Will Hernandez is their left guard, and he's, I believe, PFF's like second worst guard in all of football. I mean, obviously it's just a gradient system, but you never want to be last in offense. And it shows, especially when Daniel Jones can't hold on to the ball with anything. I mean, it's because he's getting crushed, but this is not to jump the gun, Jorge, but this is Aaron Donald's just blessing. This is what he looks forward to, is a potential to see a quarterback that he could get to that has troubles holding on to the ball. I maybe could make a case, and I might just go on a limb and either get shut down completely. Maybe Michael Brockers might actually have a game. Maybe he could have those the Michael Strahan sacks, if we want to call him that, where he's just led that way from Aaron Donald, and he falls into two and a half sacks. And I don't know. Other than that,
well, speaking of the other side of the ball for the Giants, Blake Martinez, obviously he's a tackle machine. I'm losing a lot of faith in Jabril Peppers. I really thought he'd be a lot more productive, lining up closer to the line of scrimmage. It's just not working that way. On the flips, Logan Ryan, however, who was signed from Tennessee to the Giants, he's been playing really good at cornerback. So if you need a cornerback play specifically, Logan Ryan is somebody you can go after. Big tackle numbers. He had that last year. I believe he led all defensive backs in tackles last year, and he's kind of picking up where he left off after a slow week one. On the flip side, look, Micah Kaiser let us down. We were hyping him up last week, but I think that's just an anomaly. I think there is a lot of talent there, and I think he does have a bounce back week this week. John Johnson or JJ the third, you're starting him. The issue here is really Taylor Rapp or Fuller. Fuller's been out snapping Rapp the past couple weeks. Maybe this is the full-time changing of the guard thing. I don't know. I'm staying away from that free safety position for LA.
The one thing I want to mention, and again, I think I might put myself on an island a little bit with the thoughts of the Rams from the offensive side. I think this is just like with the Vikings. I think this is they're going to start getting away from. They were the most run-heavy team in the league for 2.5 weeks, and then I think McVay wants to open it up and pass more. I know it might not be the most conducive to them winning ball games, but for some reason, I don't know why, I think that this might be the beginning of them starting to air it out more like they've done the last couple of years. Time will tell.
I agree. All right, let's head over to Vegas. The Bills heading over there. Look, you're starting Josh Allen. I understand. Like, he was supposed to have a horrible matchup last week, and he put up like this. I think most quarterback fantasy points, if not the top two. Running back, Nate, take your victory lap with Devin Singletary, even with Moss coming back this week. I think Singletary is a must flex. I don't know if he's an RB2, but definitely a must flex person if you have him on your roster. Diggs or Brown. Obviously, Brown is coming back from that hamstring injury. I believe it was a hamstring injury. Are you feeling comfortable starting him? Calf injury.
Yeah.
Yeah, he laid a big fat goose egg last week, right?
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Todd, what are your thoughts there at the wide receiver position? Diggs with confidence going forward?
Yeah, I love Stephon Diggs. He's looked amazing in that offense, and Josh Allen continues just to throw for over 300 yards when he could not do it for the beginning of his career. The passing offense looks amazing. So, yeah, I'm all over Diggs for rest of the season, actually.
Nice. On the flip side, Corey Littleton on IDP has just not been looking good. Witkowski comes back. I believe this is his first game back after missing 1.5 games. Are you comfortable starting him, Nate?
No. The only linebacker right now it's Nicholas Morrow. Nicholas Morrow has been the most successful linebacker. I mean, Jonathan Abrams, if he's actually playing, if he's healthy, I haven't checked in to see if he's still got the questionable tag or if he's actually good to go.
He does have the questionable tag, yeah.
And then if I flip to the other side, the start I'm very intrigued with this week is Matt Milano. Matt Milano is going to be tasked with pretty much lining up with Darren Waller the entire game. And if there's anything that we know from Vegas is that they are probably going to target Darren Waller often.
Well, what about Hunter Renfrow this week? The Rams, or excuse me, the Raiders are missing their two top wide receivers in Ruggs and Edwards. Could this be, a coming out party? Mike, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, actually, Hunter Renfrow is a guy that I had written down here on week 3, 6 for 84 and 1. Ruggs is doubtful, so you might as well just count him as out at this point. By the way, I would love if the NFL brought back the probable tag. I don't know why. I just
Yes.
from the old days of playing fantasy, love the probable tag. Also, the 3-week IR window needs to stay. I think it's fantastic. If I could just go back to the Bills real quick, if you play Dynasty, if you could get your hands on Gabriel Davis, he's a guy that I like a lot out of Central Florida in the 4th round. It's 100% catch rate on the season, which is 7 catches, 103 yards, and a touchdown. Last week, he grabbed 4 catches for 81 yards. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you he's a league winner, but there could be a time where he's a week winner for you.
Yeah, Josh Allen does have a perfect passer rating when targeting him. And when you think about their top 2 wide receivers, it would literally take an injury for him to be relevant. Diggs and John Brown are 14 and 15 in air yards on the year with almost 600 combined. So if one of those goes down, Gabriel Davis would probably be a must-add for me.
And you never know, next year, if John Brown's not there,
Right.
could slide into the outside role with Cole Beasley still playing the slot.
Nice.
You were talking about Renfro before. I'm a little bit worried. Sorry, mind blank. The top cornerback in Buffalo, is it Slate? Is that his name?
Tre'Davious White.
Tre'Davious White, sorry. So he's going in as the number 1 wide receiver. Yeah, I understand. Obviously, Darren Waller is the number 1 receiver, but as the number 1 wide receiver, if he does, line up with White, that's pretty scary for me. I don't think Renfro is that elite wide receiver where he can go one-on-one with one of the top corners in the league and win that battle every week. He plays well as a number 2/number 3 because he's got the second or third defensive back on him, and that's where he wins his routes. But I'm a bit concerned about him going in being targeted anyway.
That's
I had that
bad point. Then Zay Jones would be the next guy up.
right.
True.
And Nelson Aguilar.
Aguilar.
I was wondering when that was going to come up.
I had that concern with Tre'Davious White and against the Rams. I thought, man, would they actually? Are they going to move him around? Are they going to move him into the slot to potentially? And they kept him on the out against Woods the entire time, which is why Kupp had such a good game. But you might be right, Dave, because there's nothing else for them to be concerned with. I think it's if you can eliminate Renfro and Milano can stay on Waller. Honestly, at that point, all you got to do is stop Josh Jacobs, and that's a big task, of course. But I don't like that. I think this is a low-scoring game, personally.
Speaking of boring games, let's get to the game of the week, which originally was going to be the Patriots heading over to the Chiefs. The 4:25 game, the Colts and the Bears. Nick Foles, some Big Nick magic happening in the Windy City right now.
That was a fun 4th quarter. Did you guys see that?
I saw the highlights. Yeah, no, it looked pretty. Jimmy Graham apparently came back from the dead, which was fantastic.
He did.
Allen Robinson, I think he's going to get his targets. Todd, what are your thoughts on Anthony Miller? You think that's going to – he had a touchdown last week. You think he's going to come back this week, or is he going to be –
He's a guy I'm keeping my eye on for sure.
Okay.
I did not – when the first few weeks with Trubisky, it just was not looking good. But, we didn't really get to see much from Nick Foles and how the offense is going to work. So I think it's still I have him on most of my teams, and it's not like I'm dropping him.
Right.
I just think in general this isn't a great matchup anyway. The Colts and Bears have been solid against quarterback play this season, so I just don't see.
Okay.
I see interceptions, especially. Like I see both quarterbacks throwing interceptions, and I see it as a pretty solid defensive game.
Is Paris Campbell starting in this game?
Paris Campbell?
No,
He's on IR.
Yeah, our third guest on the show. How you doing?
Hey, Zeke.
He has a chance to come back at the end of the season, which would be beforehand. So, that's it. It's T.Y. Hilton.
And
Zach
Pittman went down too.
Zach
went down too. So, it's Pascal's the number 2 now.
Are we thinking Pascal could be the play? Because there's been a lot of lack of chemistry with Phillip Rivers and T.Y. Hilton. Or is this a Hilton game?
We know the answer to that.
Yeah.
Hilton is in the
the silence category. Is giving it away right there.
Has Rivers not had a problem getting acclimated with? Maybe a 6'5", 260-pound tight end?
Mo Alley
Cox, your guy. All right, let's get into the defensive side of the ball real quick. Darius Leonard has not been playing like the LB1 or an IDP1 overall this season. And Nate, you have an interesting theory as to why he's not really performing that well, given the addition of a new person on that defensive line. Can you give us a little bit of info about that?
I mean, last year, if you look, he had 19 quarterback pressures. So that went into his scoring metrics. He was getting more tackles for losses. He was getting to the quarterback, even though he wasn't necessarily tasked to do that. Now DeForest Buckner is making all kinds of waves, and I think they're leaving Leonard back just to man the middle and the outside a little bit more. And I don't think that is going to stay. I mean, at some point he's going to get the splash plays, which turn into points for us. But yeah, so far he hasn't been. If we had a redraft right now,
right,
I don't know if he'd be my number one. I might take Blake Martinez over him, even just because the volume. And on the opposite side, Roquan Smith, I think, is in line for a really big game too, especially if it's like we just said, if it's over the middle, short passes. Rivers doesn't have the arm, to really beat everybody over the top. And a Jonathan Taylor game, I think, are we a show of hands? Jonathan Taylor has 100 yards rushing. Ooh, just me and you.
Yeah, it'll be around there.
I think Akeem Hicks is doing really, really well in the middle, so I don't know for the Bears if that's necessarily going to happen.
He has not been that great on the goal line. I was watching him last week, and he got stuffed a few times, to be honest. Definitely not the brute force running back that I was anticipating. Yeah, he was pretty lucky on that 4th and 1 to punch it in. Because the first 3, I know they passed on 1 attempt, but 2 of them he gave it his best and couldn't do anything.
Okay, let's head over to the Sunday Night Football game now. Mike, your Eagles, who have one healthy wide receiver and a healthy tight end, head over to San Francisco. I am actually in a conundrum right now because I have Russell Gage, who we'll get to in a little bit, and I have Greg Ward. I have Greg Ward in a few leagues, and I'm actually really considering starting Greg Ward just because who else are they going to throw to?
Why not? Last week, 8 catches, 72 yards, and a touchdown. Him and Wentz have a good rapport. Also, Jason Peters did go on short-term IR this week with an ankle injury. So they're going to be starting someone at left tackle. I don't know. I don't want to look because it's too painful. I think it's Jordan Mailata. I wish it was Prince Tegawanego. I don't know how to say his last name. Dude's nasty. Really, the only guys from the Eagles you could start on this one is Greg Ward and Zach Ertz and Wentz if he's your only quarterback option. But just
he's about Miles Sanders.
Oh, of course, Miles Sanders. I'm sorry. He's just an auto start. I guess we're a little lucky in the regard that Bosa and Solomon Thomas are out. So that helps a little bit. But this is still the number 2 ranked pass defense in the NFL. So, I usually have a good or bad feeling about an Eagles game. I have no feeling because I don't know what to think about this game, honestly.
Has there been a game where there's been more players that are not playing in this game on both sides of the ball? I mean, San Francisco is decimated. So is Philadelphia. It's what a great Sunday night game. I can't wait.
Yeah, I had to stay up late for this, so not really looking forward to it. Although Brandon Ayuk is a guy who I like this week for the 49ers.
Daniel's coming back too this week.
He is, but I saw Kyle Shanahan said that they're going to use him differently this week. So I don't know what that means.
He's going to be a running back.
Let's get into Carlos's question real quick here. He has, what's up? How you doing? Todd Gurley or Jeff Wilson? Let's answer the Todd Gurley thing later. We'll get into Todd Gurley later. Jeff Wilson, are we comfortable with him?
Yeah.
I was a lot more comfortable when I didn't know the Jerick McKinnon status. With McKinnon playing now, I mean, obviously if Jeff Wilson was the only go, I would have threw him in a heartbeat. But Wilson, I think he's been really dominant around the goal line. He scored multiple times in each time he's played so far, basically.
Eagles defense has not forced a turnover this season, by the way. So
okay, let's go to now the other side of the ball real quick. Nathan Gary, he's still getting tackle volume, although he's not playing, up to Mike standards. Right? Oh, Jesus. Yeah, we're going to get him on the show now. Fantastic. Who else are we thinking about from IDP perspective? Bosa's not there, but who is somebody that has been coming on in relief there, Nate?
Jr.
Kerry Hyder Jr.
He was most snaps last week, almost 70% of them on the defensive line. He's got a good matchup against sorry, Mike, but what he has a good matchup against. So
Yeah.
I don't need to beat this dead horse anymore. It's Hiders and Fred Warner. We started from Philadelphia. I mean, Mike, you have a linebacker I know that you keep pushing. I haven't seen the results yet, and that's
TJ Edwards. He hasn't. He's had the opportunity. He's the starting middle linebacker. He hasn't done anything. So, I mean, stash him on your dynasty roster if you can. But there's another guy. Riley is his last name. I don't know much about him, but I see him around a lot of tackles too. So, keep your eyes open for him. It's been painful for me to watch.
Let's get to Nate. Your home team. Well, I shouldn't say your home team, but your favorite team, New England at Kansas City. Look, folks, when Cam Newton, before he was declared out with the whole COVID thing, I was really looking forward to this game.
Pull one out for Cam Newton.
Exactly. I was really looking forward to this game.
One for my boy Cam Newton right there.
I was anticipating this as being a preview of the AFC Championship, to be honest with you. Obviously, things are going to be a little bit different now with Brian Hoyer singing the ball. Probably going to see an uptick in Sony Michel and Rex Burkhead. I think we all still agree. Don't trust Patriot running backs. Don't trust Brian Hoyer. Although Brian Hoyer is good from a volume deep ball play, still I wouldn't start him this week.
The Chiefs' defense has surprisingly been good. That's what that's what's been real concerning. I went from being one of the best games I was looking forward to this week to excited about this as much as boiled Brussels sprouts. It's Brian Hoyer, unfortunately, under center, has ruined all our chances. It's going to be a massacre, to be honest. He's not Cam Newton, and he doesn't provide that real threat. I think KC defense is going to be a good play this week, to be honest, unfortunately.
Let's see here. On the flip side, are we trusting any linebackers for Kansas City?
No, because you don't know who's going to – I mean, their snap shares have been like a roller coaster. Each week it's a different linebacker. They've split the green dot, I think, in 2 of the 3 games between different linebackers. If they can't get that straightened out. L'Jarius Sneed in secondary went on the IR, which was a big loss. That hurt. Tyrann Mathieu should be involved pretty early and often. And then, of course, the defensive line. Chris Jones had a questionable tag. So I want to see that maybe the extra day might give him a chance to get a little bit healthier.
All right, let's get to our last game of the week. Got the Falcons heading to Green Bay. This better be the Todd Gurley bounce back game. And by bounce back, I mean volume-driven game. If not, I'm kind of okay with benching Todd Gurley going forward. I feel that strongly about it. Russell Gage, he's played well against bad defenses. He hasn't played that great against that one good defense he's faced so far. What are your thoughts on Russell Gage, Todd?
I mean, they pass a lot, so he's going to have his opportunities fairly often. But, I mean, when you have Calvin Ridley and you have Julio Jones, just how high can the upside really be when you have those 2 guys on the field every single game competing with snaps? But, I mean, the one thing that he has on his side is he runs the slot for him. Their defense is terrible, and they throw the ball almost top 5 in the league. So.
Right. I think if Julio and Calvin Ridley play, you're starting them. On the flip side, I think Devonta Adams is a go. Obviously, the Allen Lazard is a big blow. But you know who's the number 2 wide receiver in Green Bay? His name is Aaron Jones. And then what are your thoughts on MVS there, Todd?
I think it's a perfect spot for MVS. The Falcons are just getting torched by wide receivers. So, I mean, I know he has bricks for hands. 4 drops on the year, I think. I think only DK has more. But, I mean, I find it hard for him not to get into the end zone this week. They're allowing 9 – they've allowed 9 passing touchdowns on the year. So, Aaron Rodgers is going to eat. So, they're going to have to throw the ball.
Just quickly with DK, I forgot to mention last week that how many fantasy owners did he disappoint with that little that war?
Oh my God!
Oh, that was crazy.
Yeah. On the flip side, IDP, Nate, who you got here for this game?
I mean, it's so filling in for Christian Kirksey is Ty Summers. That's been a kind of a hotly talked about topic on Twitter, just because he's not that good of a linebacker, but opportunity breeds success sometimes, and that's what this situation is. He filled in. I think he'll get all the snaps at linebacker. He should have an opportunity to put up some points. You're starting Deion Jones on Atlanta, and there's actually another guy, Michael Walker for Atlanta, has been filling in for Olakon, who's been hurt. He won't stay in that position going forward. Once Olakon returns, he'll give it back. But like he had 16 points last week, tied for the league, not the league, but the team leading tackles. He's an intriguing play this week.
All right. And with that wraps up all of our game-by-game previews from both offense and defense. I'd like to thank David and Mike for coming on the show with us this week. They'll be regulars with us going forward here on the 4-Eye Pregame Show. Todd, Nate, thank you very much. Everybody who stuck with us, thank you very much. Good luck in your matchups. If you have any more questions between now and kickoff, hit us up on our Twitter handles that you see on the screen right now. We'll catch you next week, folks. Take it easy.
Good luck.